Hello there, princesses and princesses, and welcome to a vlog. We haven't done one of these in forever. But this is not just any vlog, it's basically a vlog about games. Well, games I've played over the years I've been on this channel, and I've compiled basically a bunch of them that I think you all should play yourselves. And if you had, good for you. If you haven't and want to know some good games, well, I'm going to tell you some that you should play. So, here goes nothing. We're going to start with the first one that you guys should play and why I think it's a good game to play. So, here we go. BioShock is a game that came out way back in the day, and it's basically ancient now that it's, a new decade, a new year, but it still holds up today for what it is. It is a first-person horror shooter that basically gives you all kinds of little trinkets and knickknacks to play with as you go through it. It has a wonderful story and still holds up as one of the best. It has one of the best intro sequences of the year when it was put out. It has also an awesome story. I'm not going to tell you about the story, if you haven't played the game. If you haven't played the game, you should go and play it yourself. It is a beautiful game, and it has a two-part series. I don't mean two-part series. It has two more games for sequels, and all three as a whole are beautiful, great games. It's fun. It's crazy. It has a beautiful story, like I said. It has a beautiful soundtrack, beautiful scenery, and it has a very memorable arsenal too. One of the things you get in this game is the ability to electrify people. You literally become the emperor, or you can burn people, or you can take control of the big guy that you see on the screen, who is the Big Daddy. You can actually take control of him. Or in BioShock 2, you even can be one, which is awesome. But I do recommend you all go play this game, as it is a good game to play. But moving on to the next game. Mesa is basically Half-Life, only remade. And if you haven't heard of this is, like I said, a remake of Half-Life 1 all the way through into Zen. The Zen update just came out recently. It's in beta. I played it, I enjoyed it. I did get lost a few times and got annoyed, which is my fault. I'm so used to there being a straight path, which is probably my fault. But this is a game that I think you all should play, as it is a great game. It started out as being free. You can actually still find the free version of it. If you go and look for it, you can find it. But if you want to play the Zen update, you can actually find that too, along with the full entire game, if you wanted to. But it is a fantastic game and a fantastic remake of a amazing classic. Half-Life has an amazing story, and it has amazing people in it, and amazing gameplay also. It changed the world, basically. Along with another game. There was another game that changed the world that we'll be talking about also. And there is also coming out eventually, not very soon, but eventually there will come out a Opposing Force remake. But this is not the only remake that's being made. There is also someone also is making a version of Black Mesa called the Lambda Incident, which is basically Black Mesa being remade into the Unreal Engine. And I'll put a video in the description below where I basically played through two or three Unreal Engine games. One of them being Black Mesa. The other is a pod racer game, which is a remake of Star Wars Pod Racing, which was put out on the PlayStation. It's ancient. Makes me feel ancient knowing about it. But yeah, we're moving on now to our next game that also changed the world, so let's go. Who doesn't know about Halo? I mean, who doesn't? I mean, at this point, it's like everyone should know what Halo is. But for those of you that don't know, Halo is coming out on the PC. It has come out on the PC now. It's in the Master Chief Collection. It's basically the remake of all the Halo games, that being Halo 1, 2, really? Oh well, Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, Reach, basically that. and of course 4 and 5, but I don't like talking about those games. uh, Basically, if you want to play a game that changed the world, play Halo. It's an awesome game series, has an awesome soundtrack, awesome story up to Halo Reach. I don't really like talking about 4 and 5 because it makes me feel a little ill. I mean, I played Halo 4, but I didn't record it. But I played it, I enjoyed it, but I didn't like it necessarily because it just didn't feel like a Halo game to me. But the Master Chief Collection is coming out, and basically Halo is returning to make another storm on the gaming platform, which is great. And I'm happy they're doing that. And speaking of, journeying through these games, now we're going to move on to another game that serves the light. Now, Journey came out on the PlayStation 3 originally, and of course I watched Ghost Rule play it, and I watched Day 9 play. If you guys don't know who Day 9 is, I suggest you go and watch his Amnesia playthrough. It's worth it. It's gold. It's the best. He's like I wouldn't say he's the best person to watch play Amnesia, but if you want somebody who genuinely was scared through the whole thing, watch Day 9. But Journey is a game that when I first watched it, I loved it, and I wanted to play it so badly, and for years I waited and waited for it to come out on PC. And then not Rhyme, we'll get to that. Abzu came out, which was made by the same people who made Journey, and then Journey came out on PC years later, which amazes me. Now, there is a special shout out I want to make because I just said one of the games. There is another game that deserves to be mentioned, and I'm going to basically show you. So give me 1 second. We have these two other games that deserve to be shouted out, Youre and Rhyme. I played both of these games. Their links will be in the description below. I will probably most likely revisit them this year because I want to. Basically, Youre and Rhyme are basically Journey when Journey wasn't on PC. If you want to play a game like Journey, play Rhyme or play Youre because they're both beautiful games. They both tell a beautiful story and both have a beautiful soundtrack. Journey does too. Journey has probably my most favorite soundtrack. Now, what is Rhyme and what is Youre? Well, I'll tell you. Basically, Rhyme is a story about a kid who goes to this basically dilapidated place and meets a fox friend, and through the game you basically find out the story behind all of these places and puzzles, and you find out that you actually were the prince of this place. Now, Youre, on the other hand, is a story about a girl who goes into the above world and becomes a dragon, and basically has to restore all these guardians so that the rest of her family can get home, something like that. I don't entirely remember the story, but it was something like that. And it's a beautiful game, beautiful story. It can get a little tedious with the searching of where are the guardians at, but once you find them, the game pretty much it's fun. It's a fun game to play through. So these two games plus Journey, which is now on PC, you can go and find it, are worth it. They really are. But we're not done yet. I like to say and I have to think about it for a second because I'm excited because I'm talking about these games, but we're now going to talk about another game that deserves to be talked about, so moving on. Homesick. Now, when Homesick came out, the funny thing is, when Homesick came out, originally I wasn't sure I wanted to play it, but I'm glad I did, because I love walking simulators. I love walking simulators that are also pretty and beautiful. And people like to tell me that walking simulators have no place in gaming, but I object because I like to say that walking simulators are more of a work of art, where you just need to relax and just let the game walk you through beautiful scenery where there's music. And while sometimes the story isn't there entirely, and sometimes the story might not even be there at all, it's just a bunch of scenery and you're just walking around, it's fine. That's fine. Homesick is one of those games that it was made in the Unreal Engine, and back when I played it, I didn't record my camera because I was sitting in my room playing it the whole time. But I tell you what, that game was worth it. I have the soundtrack on my channel too, which we will play in a second. The funny story is that when I uploaded the first video of Homesick, the developers actually contacted me saying they weren't sure they wanted, a video being put out just as soon as they put out the game of their game. But I told them, hold up, just let's wait, just wait. I told them to just watch and wait, and they did. And like a few days later, after I put up the episode, there were a dozen people that went and got the game, because I went off and I basically told a bunch of people, go and get this game. And they did. And it was worth it. The game is beautiful, the music is beautiful, the story itself is sad, but it's a beautiful story nonetheless. So I'm also going to show you guys the sound, give you guys an idea of the soundtrack. So give me 1 second. Soundtrack, and there's plenty of music to go on with this. But yeah, if you like a game you can just walk through and just have a soundtrack going through the background, this is the game. There is a puzzle in it that's very confusing, and that is that when you start out you can't exactly read anything. There's a reason for it. You have to relearn how to read through a letter puzzle later on in the game, which I did. And my goodness, was it painful to get through. Now, I must warn you that the next few games we're going to be showing are walking simulators, but I'm going to explain why they're worth it. So, next game, Through the Dream, which I played on a Thanksgiving a few years back while my family was away for 3 days. It was probably the best 3 days of that year. When I first played Nico Through the Dream, I was unsure of it at first. It was weird. The story doesn't immediately jump out at you. Like, I might have to play it a second time, which I've thought of doing as a revisit to the game, because I actually want to actually play through the game again, and this time actually try to pay attention to what's going on. Because when I first played through it, I wasn't really thinking about the story. I more just enjoy the experience, because what I do with games is I like to go into them with an empty mind, just push everything out and just play it. So I can't do that with some games, and we'll get to that. But Nico Through the Dream is also a walking simulator, and it also has a beautiful soundtrack, and it also has a beautiful layout and a beautiful story. And it is just for those select kind of people who just, well, it may not make sense to you what's going on. You might not need to make sense of it. Just let the game take you through, because not all dreams make sense. Sometimes you just have to go with it. That's all. Up, we have Corpse of Discovery, which is an interesting little game that I played back in the day before I got this mic and got a better camera. So I've thought of actually replaying through the game. I played through that game even though the frames were terrible. And my goodness, was it painful to get through, but my goodness, that ending. Corpse of Discovery is a game where you basically wake up, you are on this planet, you have a mission to do some things, you do them, and as you go through the game, everything starts to slowly go wrong, fall apart. You start, the robot thing that you're with starts dishing out all of this dialogue that I actually personally was internally and sometimes out loud arguing with because I think that's what the game was trying to do, was to get you to think about things in a philosophical way, and so I did. But really, this game is about this guy trying to get back to his home, trying to get out of this planet, but I don't think he'd made it, because in the end you die. And when you wake up in the arms of your family, and of course I broke down sobbing, because that game, like, it really made me feel. And it's not often I break down sobbing on camera, but there have been just a few times in both this game and a hidden object game where I actually genuinely for a second felt like, oof, my heart. It isn't often I feel like that, because I usually like to think of myself as a strong, manly man, but I'm not. I'm a big, giant teddy bear. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. But anyway, we're not done yet. But if you want to play this game, you should. Just like I said with Nico the Dream, sometimes it's not about making sense of the game, but just letting the game tell you what's trying to tell you. And whatever's trying to tell you, just think about it. But now we're moving on again. So the next game is interesting. It is one of a few emotional roller coasters, as was, of course, Corpse of Discovery. Everybody's gone to the Rapture is a game about you going to this town where everyone has disappeared, and you basically find out that this weird speckled dust has been taking everybody, because I think it's some kind of experiment. Also, disclaimer, there's no such thing as a Rapture. But anyway, that's a topic for another video. But this game is beautiful. I mean, it's got a beautiful soundtrack. The story is really sad. Like, really sad, but it's touching, because in the end, there's not much you can do about it. I think it was a chemical thing that this plane flew over. I don't remember. I'm going to have to go through the game. But it is a beautiful game. It's touching. It's sad. But it's beautiful. The Drizzle Plus series started out as a CryEngine game, which I played way back when. And it's just become this weird series of games. It started with one path, but there are some games where there are two paths and they end in two different ways. Or you take one path and you find out that someone killed somebody. And the game has used grammatical words that I have never heard of. It just, like, I could barely understand sometimes what they were talking about, but I tried to pretend I knew. I was like, yeah, no, I don't get what's being said. But this series as a whole is just a work of art. You walk through different places, you make decisions, things happen, and while the first game doesn't necessarily do that, I do recall the next few games slowly evolving. These games basically evolve as the guy who made these evolves the game itself, and it comes with a nice soundtrack too in some places, and the environments are beautiful, and they're also made in the Unity engine. There also is a game on this list that's also made in the Unity engine that deserves to be talked about and should be talked about because it deserves a place, and we're going to talk about it right now. Valley. I played Valley because, of course, I love, walking simulators. You've seen it at this point. But Valley, I was worried because it was a Unity game and my computer doesn't necessarily like Unity games. Yet, this one ran pretty well. I mean, for what I could do with it. This game was also covered by Jacksepticeye. He played one episode of it, although in all honesty, in my opinion, he should play through the whole entire game because it's worth it. The game is beautiful for a Unity game. Even I was surprised. I was like, this is made in Unity? Whoa, it's pretty. You basically get this contraption, as you see here, which allows you to run faster. You can jump incredible heights. Unfortunately, it's powered by these little guys that are around you, these forest spirits. They're just friendly, cute little things that run around you and squeak. As is shown in my original video, which I'll link in the description below, I've thought about revisiting this game, which I want to do. It's a beautiful game. Its story is an environmentalist dream. It's basically where these people find this place, they take over this giant valley, and the experiments are on these poor little creatures to be turned into a power source, and basically your job is to shut it all down. And while I don't agree with the message, I do agree that that responsibility is a thing, as all things, as is in all things. There should be a responsibility to what you've been given. You're stewards of what's around you. You're not its slaves. You're its stewards. You use it. Don't worship it. You use it. But these spirits are adorable. Seriously, I'm going to include a link to the video. They're so cute. But moving on, we got another game to point out. Humber is really interesting. It was one of the most interesting horror walking simulator games I've played. It isn't necessarily scary as it as an ambient walk through a cave, where you're using this cave mapping device that basically just puts all kinds of colors and stuff, and it's just pretty. It's interesting because you're basically reliving yourself. You don't realize it, and I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it's just an awesome game for what it was. It's a good game, and I do recommend you guys play through it. It's got a good story. It's very quiet and very ominous. It can get claustrophobic too sometimes, and sometimes you can get lost. But don't you always get lost when you go cave diving if you're not careful? But anyway, one more walking simulator. Next, Finch. Oh yes, I loved this game. This game came out, and I am so grateful it did when I was at an all-time low with games. We're going to talk about a game series in a moment. But I was so sad because I was beginning to lose faith in games, and I was getting to a point where I was beginning to give up. When this game just appeared, just out of nowhere, and I was like, okay, I'll download it, I'll play it tomorrow. So I played it, and I ended up going into that game and then walking out feeling absolutely refreshed. It was like a breath of fresh air. The creativity of this game, the absolute craziness of it, the fact that you get to play these different people who all are under this weird superstitious curse where they all die. Sorry. But it's just amazing because of just the effort that's put into the game to mystify you. And I was mystified by the end of it. I was loving it. And I'm so grateful that this game came out when it did. It's a beautiful game, and it has a beautiful story, and deserves to be played. You all should play it. Also, I did say that was all of the walking simulators. There is one more I have on this list that deserves to be mentioned, and it came out recently. So, hold your horses. We're almost done with the walking simulators. We've got one more. And then we have another game I'm going to talk about. This is Closer to the Sun. Closer to the Sun is it's basically BioShock, only without guns, and it's more just ambience and little scares here and there. It's not a scary game. It's more just a thriller. It's like a roller coaster ride through a haunted house where things just spook you and that's it. But it's a beautiful game. It's got an interesting story, really interesting story. And like I said, it's basically BioShock without guns. It's nice. It's a nice little walking similar horror flick that gets you nervous, gets you really debating whether or not you want to live or die. But it's good. It's a good game. And now we're done with the walking simulator, so y'all can take a breath in, out. We're done with the walking simulators. But the next game is worth mentioning too, as it is, besides Half-Life 2, and I didn't mention it in the Half-Life 2 discussion, but there is a Half-Life game coming from Valve after insert this many years, probably 10 years, called Half-Life Alyx. It's going to be on VR. Finally! What took them so long? But it's finally happening. There's finally a Half-Life game coming. But there's another game series that needs a sequel, and we're going to talk about it now. You guessed Thrillville. You'd be right. Thrillville and Thrillville Off the Rails were basically my family's go-to game. When we first found Thrillville at a GameStop, believe it or not, we were hooked. We played it to death on our Xbox. And then one day I walked into the GameStop store and I pointed out to my mother that there was a second game called Thrillville Off the Rails. She didn't believe me at first because she's like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, there it is right there, Thrillville Off the Rails. We got it. We went home. It was so worth it. It was kind of like getting Burnout and Burnout Paradise on sale on my birthday one time. It was great. Great times. But seriously, Frontier, you need to make a Thrillville 3. I don't care what you do. I don't care how you do it. Just make it, for goodness sake. It's been forever. Like, I want to return and play this game again because it deserves to be played. It is a great park simulator. You create a park. Well, no, you go into a park that's already made, but it needs fixing up, it needs help. You can interact with people, you can interact with robots, you can interact with the rides you create, you can interact with the games. Can you do that in the recent roller coaster games? No. You can interact with people, you can interact with the roller coasters, but there are no games, and you can't really walk around with the people. You kind of float over them as a camera, which is not what this game did. You can actually walk with them, which is awesome. It would be cool if there was a Thrillville 3 where you could do that again, and there just should be an addition of all kinds of crazy stuff. And believe me, I would play Thrillville 3. So if you guys think I'm not only screaming for a Half-Life 3, that's not like I've been doing it forever with the gaming community. But people will need to also scream about this game because this game was fun. And it deserves a sequel. It does. So please, I don't know. I don't care how you do it, Frontier. Just do it. Like, Planet Coaster doesn't count. Planet Zoo doesn't count. Those are basically Zoo Tycoon remade. It's what it is, and Planet Coaster is okay. But make this a thing. I don't know how. I don't care how you do it. Just do it. We will line up. Well, us Thrillville fans will line up. We'll cheer. So, get it done. Mystery Case Files. Now, why is this on the list, you may ask? Well, because, as you all know, I'm a hidden object game, I'm like the go-to person to talk about this stuff. Like, you could talk to me about hidden object games all day, and I could sit there and just tell you, okay, well, my favorite hidden object game series has to be Mystery Case Files, and of course, Fantasma. And Maze, obviously. But we're talking about Mystery Case Files. I played 13 Skull. Was my first ever hidden object game that I ever played. And that was a long time ago. Like, very long time ago at this point. But Mystery Case Files has been, for me, the staple of what a good hidden object game series is. And as of late, Mystery Case Files has been doing fantastic. With its recent few games, we have, of course, Black Veil, Rewind, Moss to Flame, and, of course, the latest one, which was, oh boy, what was it? Oh boy, I forgot. That's not good. I need to remember. 1 second, I'm going to remember. Because if I don't remember, that's saying something. It's not that I've forgotten, it's been forever since I thought about it. Because I've had no reason to think about it. What was it? It wasn't Moths to Flame. It was Black Crown. That's right. So we have Black Veil, Rewind, Moths to Flame, Black Crown. Four good Mystery Case Files games out of the bunch that Epix has been doing that were otherwise kind of hashed. and yuck. Mystery Case Files, I originally would stand up and point to the originals, that being 13 Skull, Dire Grove, Ravenhearst not Ravenhearst Unlocked, Return to Ravenhearst, Escape from Ravenhearst, Shadow Lake, those games. And there's a reason for it, because they used real people, and sure, they were standing in front of green screens, but it felt real. And now Epix has basically said, okay, what if we throw nostalgia at you for 4 games? And I've been appreciative of it. I love it to death. And now I'm looking at Epix and I'm saying, that's enough. I love nostalgia. I love it that you guys want to remind us that you guys love the games too. But now you have to do something with it that won't make me want to hunt you down and look at you like you are monsters, or whatever it is. I want Mystery Case Files to continue going strong like it once did. It has Epix has 4 games under its belt that I will stand behind and defend till the day I die. So keep up the good work, Epix, and we won't have any problems. Which is why we're going to talk about another series, and I've already mentioned it, but we're going to talk about it because it is a game series that needs to be talked about, and you should play Mystery Case Files if you haven't. Start with the originals, that being, Huntsville, Prime Suspects, and then once you get to the OGs, that being Dire Grove, 13 Skull, all of those, appreciate them. And then skip over the disasters of Kevin to Ravenhearst Unlocked, and just jump to, if you really want fan service, the ones I've mentioned, that being Black Veil, Rewind, Moss to Flame, and Black Crown, and you will feel appreciated, as I did. But we're now moving on. Next, yes, the Fantasma Collection. Forever, I would stand behind Fantasma, the original Fantasma, and be preaching to the choir about how, since the first Fantasma, we really haven't had a good one. Until recently, believe it or not. Until recently, we actually have had 2 good ones. We had Death in Hardcover, and I think it was Days of Future Past, or something like that. Hold on, let me find it again. It's been, let's see. That's Shadow Play, which is a good series. Let's see. Yeah, Death in Hardcover was a good one. And then, let's see. Death in Hardcover. And then, I think that's the one that was good. Death in Hardcover was a good one. Yeah. I said Death in Hardcover, yeah. And I think yes, there it is. Remains of Buried Memories. That's the one I'm trying to talk about. Death in Hardcover and Remains of Buried Memories are the 2 that are the best, because they stick the closest to the original material, which was you give people their closure, whether or not they're dead. As I said in the recent Fantasma video, I don't care. What I care about is that we're consistent with what was originally being put out there with Fantasma. Fantasma is not about curses. It's not about murders. It's not about haunted places. It's about the people who did mistakes in those places and how we are giving them closure because they don't either realize they're alive or dead. It doesn't matter. Which is to go to show that, of course, there's another series, Haunted Hotel, which we're not going to talk about here, but you should go and play it. I've said the same thing about Haunted Hotel. I've pretty much given up on it because Haunted Hotel was originally not about the people, about curses, about murders. It was about the hotel itself and how every room you went into was different. It was like you couldn't tell like what room you could go into, and there being like, it could be a winter room, it could be like a room full of boxes, it could be a summer room where there's grass growing everywhere. You don't know, and Haunted Hotel just doesn't do that anymore. It hasn't done it since Haunted Hotel 2, and it's depressing. It's like they're scared. And of course, Epix with Fantasma is finally stepping foot back into into what Fantasma originally was, with the last two games, which is why I stand behind them. It's like Death and Hardcover before the most recent one. It's like they were stepping into it uncertain, but then they kind of went with it. Of course, there was a monster in it that fed off of their fears, but at least you were able to give those people closure, and that's all I cared about. That's all I care about. That's all I want. But yeah, these are all games I think you guys should play. There are plenty of other games I could talk about, and probably most likely will play through that weren't mentioned here. But these games as a whole deserve to be talked about. So I should go and play them personally. There's a lot of them, yes, and you all should play them. And I personally will go through some of them and play them again, most likely. Maybe not entirely, maybe just as, a walkthrough of them. But if you guys want to see me play through some of the mentioned games again, just say so. Because I have no problem playing through them again. I've been wanting to. I just don't know, But yes, do play these games, and do appreciate them for what they are. They're beautiful games, and there are plenty of others on this channel that weren't mentioned. They're also pretty awesome games. But with that said, this is a lot. I hope you guys are all still here. So, with that, that's it. Leave a like and subscribe, because there's always room for more, and see you on the next video. Goodbye.